Flames lick the night with an ancestral hunger. The treetops burn in absolute silence, as if time itself hesitates to move forward. No birds, no breath. Only incandescent embers, dancing like living synapses in the brain of a dead forest. At the edge of the clearing, something glints in an invisible spectrum. A fold in the air, a crease in reality. A temporal artifact manifests not with noise or light, but with an total absence of heat, sound, and meaning. From the rift, pulsing in anti-time emerges, a figure wrapped in living, translucent, adaptive attire. The armor doesn't shine, it absorbs. Its body doesn't move, it repositions by anticipation. One step, the layer of soot gives way beneath its soles like wet paper. A visor activates. Nothing. The world ahead is static. Homogeneous temperatures. Corrupted data. He speaks our attempts too. Local interface, predictive emphasis, thermal pattern. Inconsistent, confirmed. No response. The visor distorts time readings, tremble like digital fever. He takes a step back, but the forest doesn't let him go. A thermal wave originating not from flames, but the earth belorics the balance of his sensors. Something under the soil still pulses. The observer's thoughts have no vocal form. They are parallel, simultaneous. Lines of logic branching into billions of possibilities. Initial analysis compromised. Emotional interference detected in human decision vector. Residual stimulus persists. He studies the environment again. The fire isn't accidental. Vegetation has been manipulated with precision. Plants cut in a way that the flames follow a flow, logs felled in a curve. The wind channeled through intentional geography. It was a trap. Not to kill. To blind. Climatic, thermal, and topographic data converge on one point. Dissociation. The clearing was a denial of meaning. A space designed not to destroy the invader, but to delete their presence. The observer records. Every second of his presence here will be unfolded, reconstructed, and analyzed by his species for generations. But he begins to doubt. There will be a next generation. The doubt isn't logical, it's a symptom. He activates an emotional review of the scenario, new reading layer, based on hormonal, mimetic, and hysterical patterns of the human species. It reveals a field of fury. Every rock placed here, every ash still carries intention. And those intentions did not vanish with time. They condensed. He has seen temporal wars before. He has watched civilizations erase themselves before being born. He has altered cataclysms for the benefit of his species, shifting millennial events with mathematician's precision. But this wasn't a rollback, it was a field of compressed memory. Humans did not forget. They accumulated like tectonic pressure beneath emotional plates, like contained heat in a dead star's core. The fury didn't dissipate in the past, it adapted. The visor attempts recalibration. The algorithms search for decision points, rational patterns, hierarchies. But there is no chain of command, no central source. Every footprint around the clearing points in opposite directions. A chaotic system, a mistake, but it isn't a mistake. It's designed. He comprehends to let the human concept they never translated correctly. Intention without centralization. They didn't need to know they were fighting together. It was enough that they all hated the same thing. And that thing was him. Asterisk. They told me to wait until the third star appeared. The first two could deceive sometimes. They quivered in the sky. Sometimes they were animal eyes. But the third, the coldest one, only appeared once night had settled deep into the forest's bones. I sat atop the burned earth rise. Ash stuck to my bare thighs, mingling with sweat, deer blood, and urson fat from yesterday's hunt. My hand gripped the fire staff, a torch made of reed stalks dipped in aged fat, wrapped in pieces of my mother's cloak. Each fiber was a choice, each knot, a name. Below, the valley still seemed peaceful. Trees stood upright, streams curved lazily, but I knew it was all a lie. They were there, hiding like worms in time's holes. Go. I whispered to the silence. No response. The fire wasn't to warm me, it was to tell them we knew. I rose, walked to the edge, and looked to where we'd seeded the burns 3 moons ago. Veins of dry grass, deliberately thin shrubs, cracks we'd carved with ancestral fire, everything prepared, the elders said. We'd lose the elk for a season. We accepted, they said. Some children would cough for 3 moons. We agreed, they said. The ash would make us slow, then our feet would sink into dead earth. I said we'd be smoke before we were bones. When the fire flared as the third star shone, the air filled with sounds foreign to us, dry crackles like soaked wood, though no rain fell. Fissures in the night? Tremors, they were trying to see us. But the fire lied for us. The heat crawled, enveloped, danced like a drunken spirit. Their sensors like shamans, sniffing bones, searched for patterns, sought hearts among the branches, but found only pain. My sister said sadness was a color. I believed her. It was black, like the smoke from tunnels we'd dug around the clearing. They called it thermal noise. We called it the veil. A future creature does not hunt in a darkness without edges. My grandfather said an enemy can only attack what it understands, and nothing understands what bleeds without showing the wound. I held the fire staff and marched across stones. One by one, I ignited our beacons. Smoke rose thick, heavy with animal fat and bitter leaves. We mixed dry excrement, fish scales, even crushed bone. It was not fire to kill, it was code. When I was a child, I saw a deer drown in hot mud by the spring. Its whole body trembled before sinking beneath the scalding earth. Its eyes still visit me when I close mine. That's how I saw the time men. They lurked beneath our air's crust, waiting for us to slip, to leave traces, to run in straight lines, to turn on each other. Sometimes we nearly did. When the black hunter wanted to burn the last woods, the elder tied him up and made him breathe the smoke alone. If the forest dies in rage, it returns with teeth. We lost an entire season. Elk migrated north. The meat dried. We traded teeth for bark. But in that void, the voices of others vanished. No one coughed without being heard. And when their sensors, those beings of glass and silence, returned to sift our tracks, all they found was the sound of confusion. A sound they could not decode. A sound that they knew came from us, but sounded like broken time. The smoke grew denser. I could feel it in my throat, in the back of my eyes. The child beside Mia, tracking up, is vomited, ash, and collapsed. I held her breathe through the cloth. It smelled of anteater fat and fermented honey, but it saved her. I saw the flames reflected in the sky. They were trying to descend, trying to reconnect, but the atmosphere lied to them. Heat did not rise as it should. The ground did not cool as before. Their readings were all warped. They saw targets where there was no one, and ignored silences where we waited. Fire had become the master of the field, and wheat's most lethal apprentices. They called it the Primichivi Theater, the incursion zone of the Middle Interglacial Era, Quadrant 49. Two future strategists. It was a test terrain, a limited cultural simulacrum. Behavioral models were fed scant linguistic data, semi-nomadic social structures, negligible military capacity. They believed humans were impulsive, reactive, chaotic. Mistake number 1. Interpreting impulse as a lack of strategy. Mistake number 2. Assuming absence of words meant absence of doctrine. The first operational anomaly occurred on the third iteration of the convergence protocol. Estimated time to neutralization, 12 local cycles. Actual time, 3 cycles. Cause, collapsed decision loop. Humans did not wait for commands. They did not react. En masse. Each clan member acted within a nonverbal yet coherent code. They did not seek consensus. They sought outcome in human systems. The OODA loop: observe, orient, decide. Act did not unfold sequentially. It collapsed in an instant. A cry, a footprint, a gesture. Action flowed like collective instinct. No central command. No redundancy. Only. Intention. The invaders. Analytical module detected this too late. Their algorithms tuned for civilizations with protocols. Command chains. Quantifiable. Signals couldn't interpret the field data. A village vanished. Another appeared. A hunter group detected within a 30-mile radius. 4 hours later, thermal signatures surfaced 80 miles away, but with altered emotional noise. Initial conclusion, multiple tribes. Revised conclusion, the same people, with new intent. Humans rewrote their tactical function in real time. No approval. Needed no validation chain. It crippled the predictive model. The tactical machine trained to simulate behavior based on history failed, because humans did not decide. Based on the past, they decided based on present fury. And fury was not random. It was a conserved variable. Alien observers noted another phenomenon. Human time folded around emotional events. A nighttime attack over water scarcity wasn't recorded as conflict. It became broadcast as collective memory. Decisions were not forgotten, they turned into stories. End stories do not obey linear logic. A child hears about a sibling's death. 20 seasons later, they lead a suicide strike on a temporal structure. What seemed random was, in fact, deliberate across generations. Cause and effect in humans were not separated by hours. They were separated by childhoods. The algorithm failed because it sought patterns in time. But human time was emotional, a covert. Simulation was tried. Insert agents within tribes. Observe, infiltrate, model, result. Total failure. Humans didn't trust by appearance, nor by words. They trusted by scent, shared pain, compatible silence. An agent approached, speaking the right tongue, wearing the right skin, walking the right cadence. He was killed at the first hesitation before a dead baby. No explanation, no interrogation. Just death. The decision was instinctive and exact. The villages prevailed, but at a cost. Where dense forests once grew, now lay dead zones. Where clean rivers flowed, now lingered ash ponds. Children slept with open eyes, screaming silently. The price of victory was not just trauma, it was sterile ground. Loss of interclan trust. Certainty that in protecting themselves they had also fractured, but that was expected. Fury like fire, both cleanses and destroys, and where grass fails to grow. Theology is born. Asterisk treks vanished. The fires once many were now few and lit in unexpected places. Without repetition. Tracks left by the tribes made no sense. footprints in inverted directions, circles drawn with excrement and ash, runes carved on animal hooves, intentionally left to rot. Every trace collected was an error. Every attempt at tactical modeling generated divergent simulations. It was as if humans had learned to lie through their own trails. And, in a way, they had. The temporal risk analyst assigned to Sector 49 was an elongated form, non-linear in thought. Time perception expanded. His functions were clear: collect anomalies, predict collapses, isolate deviations. But the enemy was not collapsing. He was absent. Humans disappeared from zones where they were meant to be. They appeared in places deemed impossible. In one cycle, they were detected 18 hours before their own departure. Are they breaking causality? Asked a superior voice. An echo from the command center. The analyst hesitated. No, they are. Confusing perception. How? With bones? With soot? Silence? Pause? Translate. I cannot. In the field. Signals were even worse. Entire tribes seemed to vanish into thin air, using techniques non-existent in cultural records of the era. They walked backward, wore masks made of earth, skin, and smoke distorting facial recognition of drones, painted their bodies with symbols that shifted with the sun's position, camouflage that was not merely optical, but semiotic. In some cases, tribes staged entire false scenes, empty huts with fresh fires, purposely scattered leftovers, rhythmic drumming on hollow logs to suggest presence where there was none. The information war, once considered advanced technology, was being waged with stone, flesh, and sweat, and it worked. Algorithms gave up trying to interpret. They began to ignore. But there was logic. It was a Maskirovka doctrine of tactical deception. Each group operated autonomously, but followed the same intention: create sufficient uncertainty to force the invaders into error. They wanted enemies to not know where to strike. But more than that, they wanted the invaders to strike wrong. A scouting group left inverted tracks, leading to a clearing with false totems. Another circled the drone landing zone, clacking stones against each other to generate nonsensical acoustic patterns. The invaders' response was predictable. They redirected resources. But the humans anticipated this. And in the enemy's error lay their chance. A scout, young, nimble, Fia, of no one, and everyone ran through the woods with paint-stained feet and terror in her heart. She had no orders. She had signals. A drum on the ridge. A mark on a stone. A look. Every gesture said something, but no one said everything. That was the rule. Autonomy. With shared intent. And if everything worked, no one was culpable. If everything failed, no one needed to explain. It was the nameless name of strategy. Turn every error into opportunity. Don't make every decision irrevocable. But the tactic had a cost. Clans began to mistrust each other, who left dissonant drums, who switched the symbols. The enemy hadn't won yet, but he had sown poison. Every maneuver drained social energy. Every success spread suspicion. Tribes became more lethal, but also lonelier, and in the forest's depth, where masks dried in sunlight with blood and clay, humanity was beginning to fracture itself. The caves were damp, alive. The walls barely breathed with nighttime, chill, and death silence. Not just any silence, the kind that exists when something is decided, never to be spoken again. The entrance was narrow, 6 steps down, 2 to the side, hand-hewn stone. The scent of aged fat, bone ash, and dry blood filled the darkness. Here, no words were spoken. Here, remembrance lived. The apprentice trembled before the black wall. It was his turn. Antelope fat, smoked in a stone bowl. The pigment made of charcoal, blood, and saliva was ready. He knew the name of the dead. He knew the gesture to draw, and he knew that once done he must erase the previous symbol, because each symbol could be used only once. That was the rule. No one could see the same drawing twice, because memory here was weaponized. And a weapon, when repeated, loses its power. Above. The invaders finally located the cave. They scanned the walls with soft, contactless light. A collection device floated through the grottos. Images streamed, lines, spirals, forms, semiotic analysis in real time. Attempts to match extinct cultural bases and mnemonic systems. No translation. The forms made no sense, because the meaning was the dead. Without the name, the apprentice whispered while drawing. Without the scent of fire burning the departed's belongings. Without the presence of the one who had lost, the symbol remained only dirty stone. And in that void, the key, disintegrated. Alien protocol dictated that any information could be preserved. Archives, structure, language, record. There, civilization was built on layers of redundancy. But humans did the opposite. Every layer was disposable. Every memory once used, burned, and only those who knew the fire understood the past. The cave painting was a one-time pad, an emotional password, a context code. It couldn't be replicated. Frustrated, the temporal observer intervened. He placed himself before the newest symbol, a spiral with claws. He attempted to copy it, but the moment his tool touched the stone, something unseen occurred. Tremor. Not in the earth but in narrative. The apprentice, already outside, sensed it in his gut. He ran inside. He broke the ground with his foot, collapsed part of the wall, poured hot ash over the painting, and whispered the name once more, so that it died with him. The observer backed away, not from fear, but from emptiness. He could not understand what he had lost, and yet he felt the loss. The cave went dark again. No data, no symbol, just hot soot and a feeling beyond words. That is what they called human victory, conserving trauma, burning memory as denial of evidence, and turning childhood into doctrine. The campfire crackled at the center of the clearing. 21 bowls stood aligned. Each handmade from clay fired with ash, ornamented with spiral motifs and teeth marks. The scent was dense, fermented, a thick broth of rotten meat and sweet root. The clearing's edge. The visitors watched. Their skin was strange, not reflective. Their eyes didn't blink. Their hands never trembled, but their stomachs, still fragile. The matriarch stirred the cauldron with a human femur bone. Her eyes did not look at the guests. They looked to the soup. Eating is peace, she declared, and peace demands courage. This gesture repeated across every village. Humans served the meal, and watched. Some visitors attempted to refuse. They were looked upon with pity. Others ate, and their bodies rejected. Diarrhea, fever, internal bleeding, was not poison. It was life, too much life. Human microbiota was wild. Centuries of adaptation to soil, blood, undercooked meat, thousands of bacterial, fungal, viral species, shared across generations via saliva, placenta, ashes from fires that licked the bones of the clan. When an outsider ate, they were tested, not by flavor, but by survival. Those who endured the food were accepted. Those who were left away from the fire. Given leaves to cover their orifices, the invaders wore exosuits, coatings imitating skin, filtering air, isolating contact. But in that ritual, they had a choice: eat, or reveal themselves. Some removed their filters. They swallowed and survived. Others hesitated, coughing, vomiting. They were watched not with hate, but with verdict. Those who couldn't partake could not remain. The table was a battlefield, but there were no weapons. There was meat, fire, and time. Some bowls were full, others shallow. The portion measured trust, risk, sometimes contempt. A guest served only broth. Understood the message: we do not trust your gut, we do not trust your fear. Negotiation was made of enzymes, sweat, bacteria, but the cost was high. The weapon lacked selectivity. Some elders fell ill too. The broth had become too heavy. Visitors collapsed, but some elders never woke the next morning. Peace, like war, was made with losses. And in that clearing, where bones floated in the broth. Hospitality became pestilence, and the gut. Court. The cold advanced like a faceless army. Dry trees, biting wind, unyielding earth. The villages understood. Without fire, the world would forget them. But fire alone wasn't enough. They had to choose where to burn, and, above all, who they would leave cold. Elders gathered glowing stones in circles, measuring the thermal radius with sticks and shade. Every meter of warmed earth was territory. Each ember lit was a vote. There was no currency, but there was obligation, and those who received heat, owed loyalty or hunger. The Wolf Clan's blacksmith understood this better than anyone. He did not forge weapons, he forged decisions. He determined who received living embers, who could light torches, who had the right to cook meat without odor. Distributing embers was his language. Each delivery was a treaty. Each denial, a war declared. To the invaders, the fire was noise. They dismissed thermal patterns, until they realized the warmed zones were shifting in rings, destabilizing their anchor points. The quantum locks of their modules, sensitive to temperature, began to fail. Their bases demanded constant maintenance. But humans knew this, and burned supply routes. There was no attack, just absence. Absence of warm air, absence of stable ground, absence of logic. The temporal observer recorded the phenomenon. Thermal denial radius, 11 kilometers. System reboot time, 3 days. Result, non-hostile retreat, but retreat. The invaders found themselves surrounded by dysfunction. They weren't attacked, they were forgotten. And without logistical support, technology turned to weight, a burden of silicon and pride. Humans understood that maintaining fire came at a cost. They cleared entire forests, forced migrations, planted famine. But there was no choice. Fire was life. And now, it was also strategy. He was broader than any man in the village, shoulders like trunks, hands that held stone as though it were clay. He spoke little, but when he did, the earth listened. His eyes didn't tremble. Even in the FIRELIGHT, he was a Neanderthal, and he was there. By choice. Humans had feared him, ignored him, hunted him, but now, they needed him, because what was coming surpassed tribal pride. Neanderthals knew stone, intuitively, felt cave echoes in their feet, could walk nights without sleep, and when they struck, they did so with centuries of pent-up fury. The treaty wasn't written, it was signed in blood, clay, and pain. A human of the Crow clan let himself be wounded by a stone. A Neanderthal licked the wound. The pact was sealed. Humans planned, Neanderthals executed. A shared pain, a divided victory, an indivisible guilt. The invaders tried to exploit the difference. They forged fake symbols. Spread rumors. Left genetically precise tokens to sow jealousy. But they couldn't comprehend the human ritual more powerful. Adoption. A clan wasn't defined by blood, it was defined by gesture. And a gesture, made at the right moment, outweighed lineage. So Neanderthals were adopted, and in that unity, became invisible to algorithms. The war became asymmetric and silent. But the cost would come later. The alliance held coordinated strikes, mental mapping, nocturnal advances. Tribes learned tactics only Neanderthals knew, but their resources were unequal. Allied bodies couldn't endure famine. Reproduction was slower, and the genetics erased. One clan prevailed. The other vanished. Centuries later, no one would remember the names. Only bones remained, and traces on cave walls no one could decipher. But in that era of stone and fire, under a cracked sky and embers of the past, there was a moment when two humankinds walked side by side and prevailed. Though one paid with its future. The temporal legal module descended at dusk, a floating structure of crystal radiating light and language. Its mission, catalog, identify human decisions, determine causality. Name the responsible. And, if possible, indict. Villages. Watched in silence, the emissary spoke without a mouth. Its voice came from the ground. You violated the historical vector. Your actions interfere with tomorrow's matrix. We need names, dates, decrees. Yet no one answered. There were no names, no dates, nothing spoken that truly mattered. The time tribunal expected evidence. But humans operated offstage. Strategies born from breath, glances, shared hunger. No decision was formal. No order traceable. No story ever told fully. And what remains unwritten. Cannot be judged. A guardian of tales sat by the fire. Sacred objects beside them. Teeth of dead mothers, bones of fallen leaders, a strip of cloth stained red from ancient blood. One by one, they threw them into the flames. Each object carried a chain of custody. Each story, burning, it erased data. But strengthened presence. It was active denial, a wordless response. The emissary attempted to protest. You're destroying evidence. This is temporal obstruction. Yet no one listened, because among humans, truth wasn't a line. It was a flame, and what enters the fire. Doesn. Single quotes to leave unchanged. The invaders' final attempt was to deploy a narrative reconstruction AI, fed images, sounds, cultural patterns, but without grief, without ritual, without touch. It generated no story, only noise. The legal module declared itself functionally bankrupt. The mission, complete, defeated without battle. No confession, no sentence, and since records. Demanded names. There was nothing to report. History had defeated the future, and silence had defeated judgment. The closing line resonates across time. They came to change the past, but found something that doesn't change. Fury